All right, I think it's time to start. So welcome everyone. So in today's webinar, Becoming an Egg Donor, you'll learn everything about the process of egg donation. We have our expert Altrui team, Sarah Pallet and Abby Garlic with us, and our amazing donor ambassadors, Amelia, Debbie, and Sophie. So in the first half, they're going to introduce themselves, tell you a bit about the process, and even give you advice on becoming an egg donor. And then in the second half, we'll respond to questions you've already asked, but please feel free to ask in the Q&A section if any question pops up, and we'll try our best to respond. So let's start with the introductions. Sarah Pallet.
Hello, I'm Sarah Pallet. I'm Altrui Apricity's Egg Donation and Clinical Relations Lead.
And then Abby.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby. I am the donor coordinator. I've been with Altrui for a little over 2 years now, and I would be your first point of contact if you were interested in donating. So you'd have your first call with either myself or my colleague Sophia, who's really lovely, and we would talk to you kind of initially a bit about the process, and we would go through your family medical history to see if you would be kind of eligible to donate. We'd ask you kind of questions about yourself and family members, and that would help us kind of determine whether you could move forward to being an egg donor. If there were any kind of anything that came up in your family medical history, we would review this with our doctors. And then we would ask you if you were happy to move forward. We would ask you to kind of create a personal profile about yourself, where we ask you some questions like what would be your ideal weekend, or what do you love about your career. So just kind of questions so we can get to know you a bit better. We'd also ask you for some photos, so 2 childhood photos and kind of a recent photo of yourself. And we would also ask you to do a anti-Müllerian hormone test, so we can see your kind of fertility levels, and yeah, so I would kind of just take you through the process up to kind of being matched.
Amazing, thank you, Abby. So now Amelia, Debbie, and Sophia, if you could please introduce yourselves, tell us the reasons why you donated, how the process went, and maybe give a piece of advice to any future egg donor.
So I'm Amelia. I'm a previous egg donor, and I'm also an egg donation ambassador for Altrui. I donated my eggs because I've seen a lot of stories and known quite a few people who have had struggles with fertility and struggled to have children. And I just really thought, well, I'm not actually using my eggs at this moment in time, and I probably won't be for a while. And you know, I'm registered to donate my blood, I'm registered to donate my organs and my bone marrow. So really, I didn't see any reason for me not to donate my eggs either when I'm not using them. And for me, I had a really, really good experience with the whole process, actually. So from me, I think having my first phone call to me actually donating my eggs took 7 months for me. But I don't know, I did it during the pandemic, so that I don't know whether it would be longer or shorter now. I'm not really sure what the average time is. And then from then, it took at least another year for a baby to be born from my donation. So from start to finish, it is quite a while. But I don't honestly have anything other than positive things to say about it. And I think my piece of advice to someone, if they were thinking about donating their eggs, is talk it through with your friends, talk it through with your family, because I was really surprised how supportive everyone around me was of what I was wanting to do. And it really makes it so much easier when you know that you've got people to talk to about it, and you've got people who will support you through it, because it's not something that you do every day, and it's not something that everyone does. So that's definitely what I would say.
I'm Sophie, and one of the main reasons I donated was because one of my friends had been quite vocal about her own struggles with having miscarriages and losing children that way. And I saw like how upset that was making her, and obviously all the emotional side that's like attached to that bit. So I thought, well, I've got something here that could maybe help take that away from someone and give them an opportunity to expand their family. And like Abigail, not Abigail, like Amelia, I'm not using that at the minute. So I'd like to give that opportunity to someone. And that's really what motivated me to go forward with egg donation and kind of kept me going through the process. The process itself I didn't find was too bad. And one of the bits of advice I'd have to give to people would be to not put it off because you think it's going to take like a lot of time, because that's what I did for like a year or so. And then when I actually did the process, it like sped up really quickly, and it didn't take that much of my time at all.
So I'm Debbie, and I'm, funny enough, also an egg donor and donor ambassador for Altrui. I've actually donated 3 times, and I did that. There have been two babies born out of that, which is just amazing. It's like the best feeling ever. But for me, very, very similar to Amelia and Sophie, I saw a lot of behind the scenes from the other side of, you know, my friends struggling and things like that, and it was just something that wasn't talked about. And people know so much about sperm donation because it's, I mean, let's face it, it's like the easiest thing in the world for men to do, you know what I mean? That's, they just like crack on, they're done, you know. Whereas with us, with egg donors, I think there's a lot of misinformation. I think there's a lot of confusion out there. There is, and it really is such a, once you get through it, like you look back and you're just like, do you know what, it was a few weeks of my time, and that's given somebody the chance of a baby and expanding their family and things. And I'm very much of the belief that biology, and I know another one of our donor friends say this as well, but you know, biology really doesn't mean as much to me. You know, it's very much like, you know, the woman who carries the baby and who loves it and gives it a home, that's the baby's mummy. That's what I see, and I'm happy to give them that gift.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the questions we have received when you registered, but again, feel free to ask in the Q&A section. They are anonymous. So the first question is, what is the process of egg donation and how long does it take? So Sarah Pallet.
Okay, well, as Abby's already introduced and given you quite a bit of an overview of what is involved with egg donation, particularly from the start. So yes, you would meet Abby or Sophia, and you would then start going through the process of some health questionnaires and tests regarding your fertility ovarian reserve, which Abby alluded to as your AMH test. Once all these are back and everything is okay, we would then move to the stage where we look at matching you with a recipient. Now, we have many recipients, and they're there for many reasons. It could be that they've had their own treatment that's failed. It could be that it's through an oncology reason. It could be they're an amazing same-sex couple and therefore need donor eggs. So we have the recipients there for all reasons. We look at matching our recipients to yourself as a donor very, very closely. We pride ourselves that not only, like other, in many cases, that we look at what is known as your basic characteristics, such as hair colour, eye colour and everything. But like Abby mentioned, we ask you to build a real pen picture and profile of yourself, detailing what you're like, your personality, your hobbies, all things like that. And we use this when we're matching to try and match you with a recipient as close to you as possible. Once we've then done that, we would refer you, for a better word, to our colleagues, our clinical colleagues, who would then assign you a named advisor who will guide you all through the process. You'll have an app on your phone, so you've got constant communication with them. And then you'd go through, again, a number of stages: consultation, counselling, another few blood tests and things such as chromosome analysis, all the tests that are required under the regulatory body. And then, like Amelia, Debbie and Sabir have said, is the key time is when we're at the stage where we can go into what we call the treatment phase. And this is where you'll start with the drug stimulation and getting you to the point of egg collection. And that normally, that phase takes around 2 to 3 weeks. We, again, like Amelia said, you constantly think that this is going to take months and months and months and months. In some cases, it's a little bit longer, but that's down to personal commitments and things. But really, we're looking at, a few months. But the key time is once you start your stimulation drugs. That's the commitment of around about 2 to 3 weeks for various things like scans and blood tests, and then the ultimate egg collection. So it isn't as daunting as sometimes people think it is, and Abby and the rest of the team will be there to support you all the way through.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I will ask the second question to Debbie. Can the children find me if my egg works?
I just making sure I'm coming off mute there before I start waffling. So yes, they can. So from the parents of a donor conceived person can ask for certain information after birth. So it'll be things like, very much like what Sarah was saying. So just non-identifying information about you. So your physical description, maybe whether you have any children at the time of donation, what their gender is, your medical history, things like that. But after the child turns 18, they can request your full name, both now and at the time of their birth, the town and date of your birth, the most recent address that is registered with the HFEA, and then any other information that maybe they might have previously removed because it was classed as identifying information. But they do always try and let you know before they release that information.
Third question is, what physical side effects are there from the medical process?
Okay, with side effects, obviously this is very dependent upon the individual. Some people will have none at all, some will have a few. And this really relates to 2 things. One, the drugs that you'll need to take to get you to the point of egg collection. There are 2 types. One that suppress, which you may think is quite funny that we're going to suppress your own hormones, but we have to. So we dampen things down, and sometimes this can give you symptoms a little bit like flushing and a few mood swings and things like that. And then once we start to stimulate the ovaries, again, you may get a few symptoms. You may feel a little bit bloated because we're stimulating those hormones. Obviously, most of these drugs are by injection, so you might have a little tenderness around the injection site and things like that. The biggest risk when we start stimulating you is there is what is known as the risk of ovarian hyperstimulation, and that's where our clinical team and their expertise come in, because part of their role is to make sure they're checking you regularly to avoid this. And we do this by making sure we're scanning you regularly and taking blood tests. This can still happen after we've done the point of egg collection, but again, the clinical team are there to support you. The egg collection itself is relatively a quick procedure, and you normally, depending on the clinic you go to, will have conscious sedation, but afterwards you will have some tenderness, but it's usually managed by things like paracetamol and just normal pain relief. Okay.
And then fourth question is, did you get any side effects, Amelia, Sophie, and Debbie?
So I got a few, but I've got to be honest, they were so mild, really. I mean, my side effects were pretty much what your average person would probably experience if they were, you know, feeling particularly hormonal on a period or something. It wasn't anything massively out of the ordinary for me, because obviously you are basically going through a round of IVF. You are injecting different things into your body, so I was probably a bit more emotional than I normally would be. I was a little bit more bloated, and as far as the actual egg collection went, I didn't have any pain afterwards at all. I went down to London for mine, so I was sedated, so I didn't know what was happening for the actual procedure. Woke up after, and then within 3 hours, I was running to catch the train back up home. So it really, for me, yeah, I was fine, to be honest. I was absolutely.
So for me, just a little, Sarah, when you're saying about a bit of tenderness around the when you're doing the injections, what I would do is just get like a really cold can of like Pepsi or Coke or something, and just like roll it on the thigh, and just it's sort of like a little homemade numbing thing. I mean, it really worked, and it was really nice. It was a bit weird drinking it afterwards though, but it was like it was really nice, and that does like really help, because it is just like a little, obviously it is an injection, but I think it's just, you just remember like why you do it. As with any of the side effects, it's like Amelia was saying, a bit of bloating is normal, but to be honest, I think we all kind of go through that each month anyway. But yeah, just sort of like cranked up a notch, because you are going through, in theory, a round of IVF. But it's nothing, no dramas, nothing to worry about, and people genuinely are always there if you need them. If I was a bit like, oh god, I'm so like emotional today, so it's normal, I would just phone Altrui and they would sit with me while I cried for 20 minutes, so it's fine.
Yeah, with me on the first donation, I was quite nauseous, but I think that was just to do with the levels of the injections and that, because the second time I did it, I had like a slightly different hormone level and I felt nothing, so I was a bit worried that it wasn't working, but actually it seemed to go fine, and all that. And yeah, I just felt a little bit emotional on the train back home, but part of that's because my recipients gave me a little card saying thank you, and I think that sent me over the edge, maybe with a little sob, but nothing severe, nothing lasting longer than like a day or two after the donation.
The next question is, how much time will I need to take off work?
Hi, so we have something in place that we call the virtual pathway, and this allows donors more flexibility with their appointments. So it allows them to have their first few appointments from home and local scans. So we have ultrasound direct centres all over the UK, so we can find local scans to where you live. Also, our centres do open in the evening, some open in the evenings and the weekends. So it would just depend on kind of what job you have. We would try to work around you as much as possible. However, like Sarah said, towards the end of the process, we will need you to be kind of fairly flexible for them last kind of 2-3 weeks during stimulation, where there is quite a few scans going on. But yeah, we'll work around you as much as possible. So it just depends on the job really, but they're usually quite understanding.
The next question is, what are the medical requirements and post-procedure care?
With regards to the medical requirements, as Abby said to you, said earlier, we will go through things like your family history and any of your history before onboarding you as a donor. Other than that, there are no real medical requirements as long as you're fit and healthy. Those are the main ones. Once it comes to after you've had your egg collection, like Amelia, Debbie and Spear said, they were relatively well. I mean, Amelia was jumping on a train and off she went, which is amazing. So it really is down to the individual, how they feel as well. But what we will do is ensure that after you've had your egg collection, we normally recommend that you rest for a couple of days. Definitely on the day of the egg collection, to have someone with you. We don't, you won't be able to drive or anything, particularly if you've had sedation for at least 24 hours. So it's good to have someone with you to just be by your side when you are going home, just really as a comfort more than anything. And then sort of rest for a day or so. Really let your body tell you what you need to do. There's no hard and fast rules that you must do this, you mustn't. Your body will tell you what you need to do. What we do encourage you is to make sure you are drinking plenty as well after you've had the egg collection, because basically an egg is like a fluid filled sac, and all those little sacs have been emptied of their fluid, so you just must keep hydrated. And if you are tender or a little bit soft, then take regular pain relief such as paracetamol and things like that. The clinical team will keep in touch with you, make sure that you're feeling okay. But after that, there's no need for you to come back and have any sort of physical examination or anything like that. It's just really a gentle recovery period. And again, as I say, your body will tell you what you can do and how quick you can do it.
Thank you. And another question for you, Sarah. Can you donate eggs whilst being on contraception?
Yes, you can. So again, it will depend on what form of contraception you're on. But for instance, you being on the pill, we encourage you to stay on the pill, and we'll work around that. Sometimes when we do the blood test that Abby mentioned, the AMH, if you're on one of the contraceptions like the implant, it can sort of make that level falsely look lower than what it is. So if that is the case, on that instance, we may ask you to come out of it, but before we do that, we will probably carry out a scan just to make sure what your antral follicle count is looking like. But in the main, yes, you can stay on your contraception. You're not having treatment yourself. So if you've got a coil in or something like that, it's not going to be impacted because we're not going to be putting embryos back. So in the main, yes, you can stay on that, but we'll always look at it on an individual basis, and if need be, speak to one of the clinicians to advise you.
And Abby, if I am 36, am I still able to donate?
Hi, so understandably, some women would assume when they pass 35 that they could still donate if they're still having periods. However, once we get into our kind of mid-30s, our eggs undergo some kind of subtle changes that might mean there's fewer eggs, or there's kind of an increased risk of potential miscarriages or abnormalities with the growing baby. So it's because of this, the age is limited in the UK to 35, but it is stretched to the 36th birthday, but that's at the very outside. So you'll have to donate before then.
And Sarah, how do you match with a recipient?
This is the exciting bit. So what we do, as I mentioned earlier, we would take all your details down. So things like your height, your weight, eye colour, hair, build, all the basic characteristics, and then we will work with you in building your profile. This profile is shared with the recipients, as is your baby toddler photos. So it's really key to us to actually have a really nice full profile, as much as you are prepared to share with us, because that gives our recipients a nice feel about you and everything. So when I'm matching, I then look at your characteristics, your authenticity, and you from your profile as a person. We also look at what our recipients' same basic characteristics are, their authenticity, and their personal profile, and what they're looking for in their donor. And that's where we try and marry the two as closely as possible together.
And then next question to Abby again. Can I be an egg donor if I am in the UK on a work visa?
Yeah, so you can donate on a work visa. You will need to be registered with a GP in the UK, however, and be in the UK for at least a year or so we can make sure we can get you through the process, in time of you being here. But yes, definitely you will need to be registered with the GP if you are here.
Thank you. So the next question is, can I donate more than once? Amelia.
So yes, obviously Debbie was saying she's donated 3 times. So yeah, you can donate your eggs more than once. I've only donated once personally. I am considering donating again. When that will be, I'm not entirely sure. I think you can help to complete up to 10 families. I think that's what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong. But obviously those families could have 2 children each from your eggs, could just have 1. It depends how many eggs you donate to each family. So children wise, there's probably no, I mean obviously within reason, but there's no specific limit on the amount of children your eggs could go towards creating. But I think it is 10 families. I'm not sure if do Altrui have a maximum amount of time you can donate with them. Either Sarah or Abby.
We basically, when we're looking at someone donating more than once, obviously we consider the number of families, and you are correct, Amelia, it's up to 10 families. But we also are very keen to make sure we look at the donors, the donors' welfare. So we would probably recommend no more than 3 donations. But again, we would look at that on an individual basis. And it is one of the questions that we get asked a lot about when assigning a donor to recipients, and in particular same-sex couples, would that donor donate more than once? Because particularly for them, where they are a same-sex male couple, they're often wanting to use both lots of sperm, so create lots of embryos, so for fibling use and in surrogacy. So for us to get donors that come through as repeat donors, That's an absolute amazing thing to do and gift, and you know, particularly certain recipients are very keen to know if a donor would donate more than once from the onset as well.
Next question. Wait, I need my glasses. They keep sliding off for some reason. Well, yeah, next question. Can I still have my own babies if I donate eggs?
Absolutely. By donating, as our lovely donors have already alluded to, you are each month using eggs that you're not using. So yes, it will not compromise your fertility at all. So you can definitely go on to conceive and have your own children.
Question number 14, then we only have one more and we'll go through the questions asked. Now live. So how far from Leicester city centre would I have to go? Very specific question.
Okay, so unfortunately we don't have a clinic in Leicester. So our nearest clinics would be either Market Harborough, Derby or Nottingham, and we would most likely put you through the virtual pathway. So you would have your first few appointments from home, and then you could choose out of them 3 clinics on whatever's easiest for you. And then your final scan and your egg collection would either be in Manchester or London. And you would have your compensation to support your travel to and from throughout the process.
Yes, I'm sure it is actually a question that hasn't been asked, but you mentioned compensation, which is £750. A common question is, will I get paid if I donate my eggs? So what would your answer be?
Yeah, so all donors have £750 donor compensation, and they can use this for loss of expenses during their egg donation process. So this covers things like travel, childcare if you need to provide childcare if you have your appointments, and also accommodation if you were coming down to London for your egg collection and needed to stay the night before. So, and to get your compensation reimbursed, you'd have my number anyway. You would just need to text me or email me and I would reimburse you straight away. Generally, we ask for receipts or print screens if it's over £30, just so we can log that in your file. And anything left over out of your 750 at the end of the process, you would receive in full if there's anything left over.
And last question again to Abby. Can non-hereditary epilepsy affect my eligibility?
Okay, so this would just depend on whether it was the donor or a family member who had it. I'm not too sure. Most likely we would need to see a report on whether it was genetic or not, but it would need further review from our doctors. So I would definitely recommend booking in a call and we can look into it for you.
All right, thank you guys. Now we'll move on to the Q&A questions, which somehow I can't seem to access. So I will try one way. If not, if you don't mind asking the questions through the chat, if that's okay. I was going to ask, can you access the Q&A?
I can see them, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, amazing. I keep clicking and they don't appear for some reason. But do you mind, I mean, you could, if you want, screenshot them and then send them to me, or if you don't mind reading them.
Yeah, so there's the first one, to be fair, you've answered. It's, would I still be able to get pregnant from donating my eggs? So you've answered that one. There's another one which I guess would be more for Sarah, which is, what would happen in the process of physically donating my eggs?
Okay. I think I've actually tried to explain the process. If you mean with regards to the actual egg collection itself, This is a procedure that will take around about 30 to 40 minutes. You're given a conscious sedation in our clinics, and then your eggs are collected by the use of ultrasound. So at the same time as they're collecting the eggs, you will have someone carrying out an abdominal ultrasound so that the consultant can visualize your ovaries and see where the follicles are. And each follicle is then aspirated by the use of it with a needle and an aspiration pump. And we collect all the fluid from all the follicles. This is then sent to directly to our embryologist, who will then tell us whether there's an egg there or not. After the procedure, you would then be taken to recover. Normally expect, you know, the whole process from admission to end to be about a couple of hours. You will have, you know, make sure you've had a drink and everything before you're discharged, and then the team will give you full discharge information and tell you about the next steps and what the do's and don'ts are, like we've mentioned, once you've had the egg collection.
Sorry, I was just trying to get up the next one.
Thank you, Debbie, for taking over.
That's okay. So the next one is, I'm an Indian woman. Without going into specifics, is there a requirement / demand for female Indian eggs?
Absolutely. I can't emphasize this enough. You know, the need for donated eggs, it's, you know, it's not prescriptive to any ethnicity. All ethnicities need donated eggs. So, but we do see a shortage of donors coming forward from certain ethnicities, such as Indian donors. So yes, there's a real demand for them.
Perfect. The next one is, would I have to pay anything even when struggling at the moment? I guess that refers to the compensation, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if you weren't able to, usually the donor would pay for the train ticket or the petrol first, and then be reimbursed. But if that's the other way around, that's fine. I'm always happy to send the donor the money to book a ticket and then just ask for, you know, proof of receipt after. That's absolutely fine.
Perfect. And then there's, when you say the last couple of weeks is when the most commitment is needed, will I still be able to work during this time? So Sarah, you've already answered that one earlier on, I believe.
Yes, but just to reiterate, yes, you will. I mean, one of the key things with Altrui and Apricity, as we've mentioned, is we work on a virtual pathway. So during that phase, we try and make it as easy as possible for our donors, either by actually, you know, having your ultrasound scans by UltraDirect or a clinic that we're associated with, or now we even can arrange for those scans and blood tests to be done in your home. So we make it as easy and as convenient for you as possible, so you have minimal downtime and are able to carry on your life, carry on work, everything that you normally would do as best possible.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add on to that, actually, that I did have blood tests at home, and that was really helpful. I don't have a scan clinic where I live, so I did have to go to the next, you know, city over for my internal scans, and it was really good because I could try and book them during lunch, so it was mostly just my lunch hour that I went in, so I didn't really have to take much time out of work for that either. And actually, it's quite surprising how supportive workplaces will be. I actually did jobs during the process, and both places were so understanding. Really amazing about the whole thing. So I think it's just a case of being really open with them and saying, look, this is what I want to do. It would be really great if you could support me. They'll more than likely work something out with you where you can either work your time back or they'll let you use a bit of holiday for it. You know, they will most likely try and help you as best they can.
Yeah. Perfect. And then, is the donor allowed to know if anyone was successful? No identifying information, i.e. baby boy, etc. So I think it's, and I know Abby and Sarah will probably back me up on this, but it's the donor knows as much as the recipient tells Altrui. So I found out when my recipients were pregnant, and then I found out a few months after the babies were born. I think they have to leave it a few months for just so it's obviously completely anonymous, as obviously you have no contact with the couple directly, everything's done through Altrui. But both the babies that were born, I was told that a girl was born and a boy was born. So yeah,
exactly. So yeah, we can inform them of the pregnancy and of if it's a live birth and whether it's a boy, girl or twins, and it's completely up to the donor if they want to know. Some, I'd say most do, but some don't. It's completely up to them, and we can let you know as soon as we're updated by the parents or parent.
Lovely. The next question is, could you go through the extraction process in more detail? Sarah, obviously you've done that. I don't know how much more detail you want to go into.
I just wanted to make sure that like whoever does that does know that it's not like it is invasive, but it's not like you're having like a surgery. No one's like to open. There's no scars. There's no. It's not like a major procedure.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not going to come out with stitches and things like that.
No, definitely not.
I was going to ask, is it painful or how does it feel?
If completely knocked out, so I didn't feel a thing, nothing, because I went down to the London clinic, so I don't know if it's the same in Manchester, but yeah, so I had the sedation and I woke up and didn't even really know I'd had it done. So yeah, no pain at all. But...
Yeah, if you want to know what happens on the day, basically from about midnight you can't really eat or drink anything. Like you can have like a sip or two of water, and then you go in. They've got you in like a little room. They run a couple of quick checks, make sure you're all good to go. And they put like a little, it's for London, so if you go to sleep, they put like a little catheter in your hand here, and then you go through. I had a really lovely guy who's like, this is gonna feel like a G&T, and then that was it. I was asleep when I woke up.
Wow, that's so funny.
It's probably the same guy because I had the same
probably
guy
the same
twice.
guy, yeah.
And I was like, G&T guy, and he was like, oh my god, yes, it's me again. But yes, I had him, went to sleep, woke back up, and yeah, that was it. You get a couple of biscuits, maybe some hot chocolate if they've not run out, and then
and lots of attention.
Yeah,
the attention's nice.
The process itself's really easy on the day, but there's nothing scary at all, and yeah, it's quite straightforward.
Cool. And the next question is, what is the youngest age to donate your eggs? I am 19 years old.
So it's from 18. So I speak to donors quite often that are 18. So yeah, from 18 or above. I just asked, just to make sure that you've really thought it through and spoken to your family and friends about it. But yeah, from 18 years old, you're able to donate.
Perfect. And the last one is, do you meet the couple I think we've covered this, but I'm just going to read it out anyway. Do you meet the couple you're donating to, or do they just like your profile / baby pictures and make a decision from there without meeting each other? So I think we've all said, haven't we, it is a anonymous, I can't get my words out, you can tell it's a Thursday night, anonymous donation. So it's all non-identifying information that is given. And I don't know about Amelia and Sophie, but when I got I got cards and letters from my recipients, and it was only initials at the bottom, as in not like their first and last name, but I had like P&R or whatever it was, I don't know if that was their actual initials, but that was just kind of how they signed it. But yeah, you don't know, about them, and I guess they do see baby and toddler photos, don't they? yeah, but they don't see like photos of you now, for example.
No, so I mean, I knew very, very basic information about the couple I was donating to. So I knew they were a professional couple, and I knew they already had a child, that they'd successfully had, you know, their egg and their sperm through IVF. But unfortunately, the second time round, it just wasn't working for them, and they just needed sex. So, and they actually wrote in their card for me how excited their little boy was to, you know, have a little brother or a little sister, and that was just lovely, because I'd come around from this sedation, you know, having donated my eggs, and they'd sent this little card and this little present to the hospital. They sent me a little necklace, which I wear all the time. And yeah, so you don't know them, but you feel connected to them, definitely.
Yeah, you do.
At the end of the day, you're doing something that's going to completely transform their life. And I don't feel like you can not feel connected to someone once you've done that for them. So yeah, you don't know who you know who they are, where they live, but it's a different kind of knowing someone. I think that's the way I would put it.
And I think, like, because they, or with mine, it was quite a fresh transfer they did. So it was like, I knew that when I was doing my injections, I knew that she was doing her injections, and I would be sitting there at night going, I wonder if we're doing it at the same time. And it really was like, and it really is such a beautiful thing to do for somebody, because you'll never, you know, in theory, you'll never meet them. Or I think that's the attitude you've got to kind of go into it with, that you will never. If you do, great. If you don't or don't want to, then that's fine. But, you know, you'll never meet them, but you know out there that Christmas morning they're waking up with a little person because you took out a few weeks of your time.
Yeah,
I think that's lovely.
I think what's good about going through Altrui is that they spend a lot of time really trying to make sure that it's not just a biological kind of like genetics match or anything. It's I think the words they use were, it's someone you'd be friends with in real life if you met like under different circumstances. So I think you kind of put a lot of trust in the process, and that yes, they are just getting your baby pictures and what you've like chosen to share, but really that's enough, because like, you would be friends, and it's not like there's a lot of emotion that's gone into matching this process.
It's matching your recipient and donor together is such a vital point of the process, and it's that's part of my role, and I feel very privileged in that, because I've worked in fertility for decades, and I still have the same passion and enthusiasm when I see a donor, and I just think, oh my God, you are going to be so loved by this recipient, because you're just amazing, and everything just sort of clicks. And that's where we at Altrui really think we're a little bit different to other places, is because we personalize the matching. It's not just on this is a person, this is someone donating and whatever. We think of you know, we try and give our recipients as much information about you as a donor, which you kindly give us, without taking over that threshold of it becoming a known donation. And it is such an amazing thing from, you know, when you're phoning that recipient to say, we think we've got a match for you. And they go, oh, what is she like, Sarah? What, you know? And we're talking all about you and everything. And for me, you know, it is so emotional, because I feel them, I've spoken to them at the start when they're trying to get a donor, and they often, some of these women have been on very, very long journeys to get to this point. And so, and then you think, you know, oh right, yeah, we're going to get there. And then to go to that next level of excitement with them when you're saying, I've got a potential donor. And then when I read out your profiles and talk to them about you, and just to hear, you know, the change and the excitement. And I recently had a recipient couple, and she went silent on me, and I thought, oh, and her husband said, "Sarah, don't worry, she's just crying happy,"
Oh.
you know, and then that set me off, and I started crying, and so it is. We take a lot of time when we are matching our donors to our recipients, and that's why it's so lovely that you as donors share so much information with us to be able to pass that on. So it's we do take a lot of time to do it.
And that's one of the things that I like most about you guys as well, because when I had a look at other companies, it was like a transaction. It was an egg bank. It wasn't an actual match. It wasn't a service. It was just it was like, cool, give us your eggs, we'll let you know. Like, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So whereas obviously with yourselves, it's like you actually take the time, get to know us as people, and obviously you get to know them on their journey as well, and match, and it's awesome.
And then more questions, haven't we?
There's one more, and it's, how do you think you'll feel if they contact you at 18?
I think I'd be really excited. Obviously it's not something that I'm expecting, but part of one of the things you've got to do, you don't have to be encouraged to do with the HFEA, is to write a goodwill message to any potential kids that might arrive. So in there, I'm like, if you want to talk to me, if you want to find out, even if you just want to check some details and stuff, and then that's it, that's fine. But yeah, I'm excited, but at the same time, if they don't contact me, that's okay. But I'm here to talk. So
definitely. Yeah. I think it'd be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love it if the baby that was born from my egg donation, if, you know, I one day just got a message on Facebook or Instagram saying, are you the woman that donated an egg? Like, that would just be the most amazing thing ever. And yeah, like Sophie, I did also put in my letter to them, if you ever want to get in contact with me, if you're ever curious about who I am, you know, what led me to donating my eggs, please just, yeah, definitely get in contact with me. But I did also put, don't feel pressure to, you know, if you're completely happy just knowing that you're donor conceived and that's it, and that's all you want to know, that's also fine with me, because I didn't do it to get you know, contact from this child 18 years down the line. It's not the reason you do it. As amazing as it would be to know what kind of person she's grown up into, and, you know even what she looks like, because you do think things, you know, look like me. Is my personality coming through in them? Because they are half my genetics, so it's definitely curiosity. I would love it, absolutely love it.
I remember what I was like as a teenager and think, oh, you poor thing, you've got it all to come. But no, like genuinely, like echoing what Sophie and Amelia said, it would just, and it's not like, and I think people think that you're just going to get a knock on the door one day, but it's not like that, because the HFE, like, they do contact you and let you know, and they'll say, oh, just to give you a heads up, so you're not just going to open your door one day and there'll be some 18-year-old boy or whatever there. It's not like that at all. And I think as well, just to point out, because this was a question that I had, it hasn't been asked, but just in case, one of the questions that I asked when I was donating was, will this child, can they have any claim on my estate and my things? And the answer is no. As soon as those eggs leave your body, it's not your responsibility. You have no legal obligation. That, you know, they can't come and be like, cool, you own that house, that's mine, or that's part of mine. They can't do that. Really selfishly, that was just a thought that I had, because I was like, oh, I've got two children, like they are my children. I raised them, I want them to have all my stuff, and I thought that was a question that I had, just in case, and that's probably one that no one else would have thought of, but there you go.
No, I do get that sometimes. Yeah, it's a good question to ask and to know.
Yeah,
It's the rule in the UK is whichever woman gives birth, the child is counted as the mum, like legally and everything. So you're all super protected, especially if you go through like a licensed clinic like Altrui and Fertility.
Yeah,
because I don't have any children myself, so that was a consideration for me as well, because I was thinking, well, I don't have any children now, but I do want them. So, you know, one day am I going to get a phone call? You know, you think, well, would I be liable for things like child support and things like that?
Yeah.
Until you do it, you just don't know. So it's a valid question, definitely.
All right. I think
I think that is all the questions. Yeah.
So thank you so much for participating in this webinar. I feel like we've covered mostly everything. Obviously the next steps would be booking a call. You'll receive an email on Monday, and you'll see a link to book a call directly with Abby. And then follow the steps from there. Obviously, if you have any more questions, she's there. Sophia, also a donor coordinator. She's lovely. She couldn't make it today, but you can call her as well, book a call. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. And that's it.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nice evening. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.